Welcome to Emotional and Mental Justice. I'm Yuna, and welcome to my podcast. My podcast is a place of familiarity. It is a place where we can learn to rediscover our hearts and our minds with an aim to live a life that we will love, where we can be free to be exactly who we are and with no apologies. Come and take a walk with me. Let us get that justice that we deserve.
We all have emotions and think about things. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it.
Easy. Here we go. Welcome to Emotional and Mental Justice. I'm Yuna and welcome to my podcast. So today I'm joined by Sandra Phiri, a very inspirational young woman who has been through a lot. And today we're going to discover Sandra's story. Sandra's here with me. Sandra, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for trusting me with your story, your feelings and your emotions. And I'm really honored to be able to just have this conversation with you. So you've been through a lot of trauma, but hello, welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, so Sandra has been through a lot. You have lost your husband. You've lost your young child, and during all of this trauma, you found out that you were 3 months pregnant while a lot of this was happening. I know you've previously talked about, you've put out a video on social media in the past when there was an appeal for your young child that was going through a heart condition at the time, to try and help her in any way that you could get help, whether it's through emotional support, funding, or anything else. So really, it's just about uncovering your story and really finding out how your journey has been. How are you feeling before we begin? I know we've just talked before we pressed record, but how are you feeling right now?
Well, a bit nervous, obviously, because it's one of those things where like you think like it's one of those things that sometimes in my mind I think like I've told this story several times and I think I'm gonna be okay, but in the moment or when I'm being asked or when I'm trying to recall something or remember something, there's obviously a lot of build up in terms of emotions. Yeah, so there's always that bit to it. So yeah, nervous, I guess, but
yeah, it's not easy, and emotions are emotions. Emotions are raw, and it's not happened too long ago. Allow yourself to feel what you feel, allow yourself to express what you express. I think keeping things in is can be more detrimental to our health sometimes than just releasing it.
That's true. Yeah, not to let stuff in, because that was like ideally my way of dealing with things. Like I'll just, keep to myself and very few people would know where I'm at, like mentally, what space I'm in. Even my family, even my mom, like sometimes it'd be hard for her to get through. So it's been me learning as well that it does no good to be in that space and that sometimes it's better to just open up and let it out.
Yeah, and there's a time and a place for everything. There is also a time and a space for you to keep things to yourself, for you to grieve in your own way. So I feel like there is a time and a place for everything.
That's true. That's definitely true. Yeah.
Okay. So obviously, your precious young baby, Alexis, you lost her. When did you lose Alexis?
That was in 2021, November.
November 2021.
So like roughly like what, 14 months, I think now. Yeah.
And prior to that, you lost your husband. When did you lose him?
Husband. About 6 years ago now. It sounds so surreal when I say it because in my mind, like it feels like it hasn't been that far back. But when I say that, I'm like, wow, that's a long time. If you really think about it. Yeah, but a lot has happened in between that it hasn't actually quite given me the chance to, for lack of better terms, like process stuff, or because time feels like so like it doesn't feel like 6 years in a nutshell, just to be honest. Yeah, because I think also the part of it is I never really had time to properly grieve. Yeah, because things were just happening like from one thing after another. So like it never gave me a space to, as I'm processing this, the other thing is happening. As I'm trying to catch up to that thing, something else is happening. So yeah, 6 years.
A lot has happened, and 6 years is no time at all. 6 years,
Yeah.
and we'll get to learn your story. When you say a lot of things have happened, we'll get to learn today what has happened in that time to not allow you that time to process it and to grieve. I lost a brother just over 10 years ago, so coming to 11 years ago, and it feels like yesterday. So when you tell me that 6 years doesn't feel like it's 6 years, I really do. I can empathize with that. And then we've had the pandemic in between that lost a lot of everyone's years. That
true.
And then so that was in 2017, and by then you had been married for 3 years.
Yeah, by then we had been married for 3 years. We got married in 2014, May. So yeah, we're just like a couple of months to getting into the 4th year, but it was 3 years when he died.
Okay, and then now you have a son.
Now I have a son because I was pregnant. I was 3 months pregnant when he died. So now my son will be turning 5 this year. So
wow, yeah.
So
time just really does fly. So I'd like to take us back to the beginning. If you can tell us a little bit about you and your husband, your love story, because I know, I mean, I follow you on social media. We've spoken on there before, and I know that you had a lot of people with the comments and everything say you were couple goals. Like this was the type of relationship people aspired to have. Can you tell me a little bit about your love story with your partner? What was his name?
His name was Kapelembe. We named my son after him because it was one of the conversations we had like just a few weeks before he died. But like I think about it now and I look at because I don't know, but I'm fully convinced that the quality of relationships around has changed over time. I haven't dated since my husband died, so that's like 6 years. Like I haven't not talking stage, nothing with anyone in this 6 years. So one of the things also that has led me to just like keep away, apart from a lot of things happening in the process and me not really having the time, honestly, to even like squeeze someone else into my life. But it's just that when I look at the quality of relationship my late husband and I had to what I'm seeing around now, like it can't be compared. Like we were, I'm trying to think of where to start, like if I should get to how we met, like what made me, like I always say God has, like when people say God has a sense of humor, it's true because like my husband, when I initially started talking to him, I started talking to him because I was going through something in my life and he seemed like he was the kind who never, on social media, like he was always out there, like he'd always, speak his mind, speak his truth, and he wasn't what I would necessarily term as a Christian. So for me, I was trying to draw away from being a Christian at that point in time because I felt like, look, I was being a Christian, but things weren't going the way I wanted them to go. Like I wanted to explore a different life. I'd never been clubbing ever. So I was trying to see if I could talk to someone who could, get me through that type of lifestyle. Weird that I was starting to talk to him at a time when he was trying to change his life as well. So he was trying to draw more to God. So we got talking, and in the process, in every conversation we had, I could tell from his response and how he spoke to me that he had a certain pedestal for me in terms of my spiritual life. So what then now happened is that in turn, instead of him now taking me to the club and all of those things, it now shifted to me helping him draw closer to God because that's where he was at the time when I met him. So our conversation, our friendship was more of now me helping him draw closer to God. And in me helping him draw closer to God, I also drew closer to God. So we were friends. Yeah. So which was like, I always laugh about when I think about it, like God will sometimes do things to almost self-destruct, but he'll always have a way to get us back to him. So then I drew closer to God, and my husband and I were friends initially. And then obviously that then grew into something more. So from there, like it was just, we dated for a month, technically. And he proposed the next month. He proposed that we get married.
Wow, a quick proposal. You must have just known, because they say when you know, you know.
Yeah, right. And I always, it was really just God. Because like even for me, like I was the type of person who had sworn like I'm never ever gonna get married and all of those, but he gave me like, even till today, when I think about it, I'm like, he was the best decision I'd ever made. Despite I had moments for a very long time, especially after he died, that I regretted meeting him, especially like after my daughter also got sick. Because in my mind, I was like, look, if I didn't meet him, if we didn't get married, all of these things weren't going to happen. I was gonna be on my own. I wasn't gonna have like, oh, I'm a widow now, or I have a sick child. Like, all of this wasn't going to happen. So for a greater period of time, I think maybe a year or two after his death, it was just really me battling with the fact that, you know what, I shouldn't have met this person, and not coming from a bad place that I regretted the love that he gave me. That I never regretted, but it was just how things had panned out. But now, with more growth and more things happening over time, I do appreciate and realize that it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because like, yeah, like the way he loved me, it was really like just God loving me, because it was the small little things that are very difficult for people these days. Like, I would tell people, me and him dated for about, technically we dated for about 6 years before he died, but we were married for like 3 years. So in that 6 years, and even till the marriage, like, this is a person who every single day would have, like, regardless of where he is, where he's working from, would have lunch together. He'll make sure he drives over to where I am. We have lunch together. Yeah, like, there were like a lot of small things that he would just go out of his way and do, like, every single time. Like, he would, yeah, like, I can't even put it into words, how amazing he was. Yeah.
So you've been loved. You've been truly loved. And
Like,
a lot of women don't get to say that. It's loved and spoiled rotten. There's a lot of women that don't get to say, I have been truly loved. And that's a beautiful thing. And what you said earlier about the regrets, and I think that's normal. When you're grieving, you go through all these stages of grief. And one of the stages, it can be denial, bargaining. So the bargaining stage will be where you're saying, why did this happen to me? Why did I have to this and that? And that's one of the stages that you went through. And that's normal. It's a normal part of grieving. We have regrets and things like that. But I guess it's nice that when you take it back and say, actually, when I look at the bigger picture, I have been loved and spoiled.
Yes, a whole lot. And what people, like you mentioned, people say we're couple goals, and people just really honestly saw like a quarter of the whole picture, because there's so many things that man sacrificed for me. There's so many of my like my flaws and weaknesses that he just fully embraced, and he made me feel seen and valued as a person, regardless of my faults, my weaknesses, everything. Like, he took every single bit of me, he appreciated it, and he worked with it. There was nothing about just loving me in my good moments. There was nothing about it was just, the whole thing, the whole bag. And also, for me, now that I think about it, I also miss how he was willing to be loved, because I've realized now that there's people who are actually not, I think they want to be loved, but they're not like really willing to allow you to love them. Hence, they make the whole process even more difficult. But like, for a man, he was very open. Yeah, they're not ready. But for a man, like, he was very open and very vulnerable to receive the love, and that made it a whole lot easier. To be in him.
Yeah, for all types of reasons. Sometimes people are either not willing or not ready, or they don't know how to love or how to receive or how to give because they've never received it. And I'm sure he was with you for reasons that you've also blessed him with. I'm sure nobody gives you everything and loves you the way that they love you if they're not receiving that kind of love from you. So give yourself credit in that relationship as well, and I'm sure you do. That you must have been this amazing woman to him as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry about my camera. I don't know. It keeps going on and off, but I'm here. Let's proceed. So I mean, that's wonderful. So you were together 6 years all in all. You were married 3 of those years. When did? Because obviously he passed away, and he passed away before Alexis was poorly. Is that correct?
Before Alexis was what?
Unwell. Before she became unwell.
No, not really. So what had happened was, Alexis was born in 2016, like in January 2016 is when she was born. And a year after, for her first birthday, we threw a birthday party, which, like, she'd never really be out there, like in the outside with people and whatnot. So when she had that birthday, that was like in January, she developed a cough.
Of course, because I've seen the pictures from that party. Yes.
Yeah. So when she developed that cough, that's what now led us to us discovering that she had an issue with her heart, because the cough just started like all of a sudden. I was at work and then my mom called me and said, Alexis is coughing. So we're like, okay, which was weird because like she never really had like a cough. The most she ever had, like in terms of getting sick, was I think like there were tonsils, but like just once. She was never a sick child.
So
So
when
she
she
had
was
a cough and then we're like, oh,
sorry to interrupt you. So when she was born, was she just born with no birth defects, no problems, no conditions?
no conditions, no nothing. Like she was perfect. She was fine. The only time, and we would, like, we were the parents would never miss any hospital appointment. She had all of her vaccines, and we're the ones who we noticed we rushed her to the hospital because we never wanted to miss anything, you know. And I think maybe it's like that even for like every first time parent. Every time something happens to your child, like you really just want to make sure you understand the full picture of like what's going on. So she was okay, like there was nothing wrong at all, ever. She was completely okay. And like I mentioned, the only thing she ever had was like the tonsils. Just once she had that issue with the tonsils, and then that day she had a cough. My mom called me. That was like after lunch, must have been like 2 p.m. She said Alexis is coughing. By the time it was like 4 p.m., she called again and said the cough is getting worse, which is surprising because like it was just in the space of 2 hours. So then we got off work, my husband and I. He used to work somewhere else. I was working somewhere else. So I called him, told him, then got off work, got home. By the time we were getting home, she was like already having difficulties breathing, which was also very strange. By the time we were getting to see the doctor, which was like around 6 p.m., because of traffic and everything, by 6 p.m., we're seeing the doctor, like she's coughing, like she's been coughing for I don't know how long. The doctor sees her and he's concerned because he says, are you sure? Sorry, are you sure this cough has started today? So we're like, yeah. So then he says, I need to have an x-ray done just to check and make sure if it's really started today, because he didn't believe us. He does the x-ray, and then from the x-ray, he notices that the size of, like you could literally see it from the x-ray, that the size of her heart was bigger, like so big on the other side. And the other side was just like normal. So then he says, he listens to her chest also. Then he says there's a sound, there's a mama there, and then he refers us to UTH. So if you're in Zambia, you do know that once you go to one of the best private hospitals and you're referred to UTH, then it means they can't handle the situation. So everything is escalated like very quickly. We get to UTH, and then they check her heart, and then this doctor says she has like a very big hole in her heart. And there's some guys who'll be coming in from Israel. He said they'll be coming in October. So they'd have to check her again. And then from there, they'll be able to see if she's like that critical. They'll put her on the list of kids that go to, I think it was Israel, Italy, and then get the operation. So because now that cough kept on progressing and it was getting worse, like her lips would even turn blue. So now this is a child who was okay. Never had that, and all of a sudden she's coughing uncontrollably and her lips are even turning blue. So then we couldn't wait till October. October was a very long time. The doctor managed to put her on some meds, like anti-failure medication. So now, despite us getting this information that this is happening, we're also really trying to process very fast how quick the turn of events has been, because now she has this whole big case, but then she can't get any help. So we seek help for her out of Zambia. And by the time we're getting to South Africa, where insurance has helped us to get to South Africa, the doctor says she doesn't have a hole in her heart like the doctor in Zambia had said. She had 3 holes in her heart, and she had what they call truncus arteriosus, which then is a whole complete different defect. And at the time, it was like one of the rare ones where instead of having like there's 2 there's like 2 outlets. I'm trying to simplify the terms. There's like 2 outlets that are connected to the heart that like are in charge of taking out the blood with the deoxygenated blood and oxygenated blood. So for her it was just one, and they were mixing up. So that was the problem. And then because we found out later there was so much pressure in her lungs that she now had developed what they were calling pulmonary hypertension, almost like a BP, but for the lungs.
But yeah.
So they said because the pulmonary hypertension is like so high, I can't do anything. I can't operate on her. I can't so everything just changed from just her having a hole in the heart to now this is like a very critical condition. We went to South Africa being told she has a 90% chance of getting through the operation, to us getting there and being told she actually has a 10% chance of getting through. So it switched.
So it switched all the way around in
all
such
the
a
way
short space of time.
very short space of time. So you can imagine the mental effect and emotional effect it had on both my late husband and I, because everything was happening very fast. You know, 1 minute she's okay, next she's coughing like crazy, next she has a heart problem, next it's apparently worse than we thought it was, next the doctor says he can't operate on her.
Yeah.
But thank God he managed to like put her on some medication, controlled the pressure, it did reduce, and then they put an artificial valve in her heart, like the one that was missing. He put an artificial one in her heart, and the operation was quite successful. So all of that was happening in 2017, from January up to she had the operation in May. We were only leaving South Africa in like July, August, and my husband died in November of the very same year. That was like 4 months after she had the.
Okay,
Yeah.
let me just stop you there for a second. I mean, so much happened. You went through so much in finding out in one day this is what's happening. She has a cough, to go into a hospital, it's being referred to a hospital where you know something is wrong now if she's being referred to this. What was going through your mind through all of this? I guess it's a big question to say through all of this, because there would have been different stages where you went through different things. So if we can just sort of go back to the moment where you had found out the x-ray, she had a big heart on one side. What was going through your mind?
Like for me, the first thing honestly was, how did we miss it? Then instantly it was, because like even when like before we even get to essay, when the doctor here mentioned, for me it was like how, like I felt like a bad mom. I thought there should have been a way I would have known, and I missed it. How did I miss it? Because I was one of those moms who, I was very careful about what her child eats. I was very careful about the brand of diaper she's going to use, because there's some chemical what that can go into her blood and cause this to happen. I was very careful about the shampoo I'm going to put on her hair, the soap she's going to use, because I was just like, I've always been, even now, like I'm the kind who, I watch what I eat. I read labels on whatever it is that there is. Even when I'm eating the wrong stuff or I'm being careless, I know exactly what I'm putting into my body. So how did I miss it? That was the bigger chunk. And then for a long time, that like that was what was dragging me and pulling me. Like I wasn't a good mom.
So there's a lot of self-blame there, but with something that was internal, something that you saw no signs of, something that there's no way without an x-ray even that you could have known, or without the whatever scans happen. So, and I understand what you're saying. I'm a mum myself. We take care, especially when we have a child. Being a first-time mum, you really take care of all the finer things. But do you know now that there's nothing that you're to blame for, in terms of that particular moment of first knowing what was happening within her body?
Exactly. Like I appreciate the fact now that it was bigger than me and beyond me, kind of. It was more a neglect on the health system in our country more than anything, because in South Africa, the moment the doctor saw her, he said, just by looking at her, I can tell that without even doing an x-ray, I can tell there's one side of her like her rib cage almost that's looking bigger. So he mentioned there's no way the doctors would have let this slide, or in the test that can make this happen, because that's what they have there in South Africa. Because like even for my son, I remember when the last review that Alexis had when my husband was still alive, the doctor mentioned to us, because we told him like we were pregnant, we discovered that we were pregnant again. So we told him, and he said, I need to, before the child is born, I need to check his heart, and then after he's born, I need to check his heart again. That's how advanced they are. So over time, I did start to realize it was beyond me in terms of knowing, and that I wasn't really to blame, and it was more of a healthcare system glitch here in our country. But yeah, for a long time, it was a baggage and a weight I carried around, that it was my fault and that I missed it somehow.
I can imagine. And again, it's part of the grieving as well, grieving process, where you blame yourself. And like, I'm so happy for you that now you realize that it was beyond you, and there's nothing, you're not a medical professional, there's nothing really that you could have done to have seen. But I guess perhaps going forward, it makes you more cautious of your now child and any future children you may have.
Yeah.
So Sandra, thank you so much for sharing that part of your story. I mean, that couldn't have been an easy time. So at the point that you realized and learned that, you know, what did you miss? How did you miss it? What could you have done differently? And everything. But now you've come full circle to a point where you know that it was bigger than you. It was more about the health system. I would like us to touch upon the health system a little bit later on, just to really see what your struggles were with that system when you talk about the health system in your country. I would like to learn a bit more about that. So having gone to South Africa, and then when everything went full circle, what were the thoughts and the feelings and the sentiments throughout the rest of the journey?
Well, when we were told about she has a hole in the heart, and then we looked it up, my late husband and I, that is, and we discovered that it was, and like after we were told she has a hole in the heart and she has a 90% chance of making it. So there was worry, obviously, like a child has got this big thing happening to them, but then the fact that we had like gone out of the country to seek help for her, and like it was like one of the best doctors also, and that the chance of her surviving was like this huge chance, 90%. It was to a great extent reassuring. So we had obviously battled a lot in this few months, that because we went to South Africa in May. So from January to May, there was a lot of back and forth in terms of our faith. There was a lot of being upset, like, God, why is this happening to our child? Or, like, what happened? Did we do something wrong? Or did we pray enough? You know, like, what really is going on to us? Just getting in a place where we were praising him and thanking him that even though she was going through this, unlike the other kids that we had seen on that list who were just waiting, because from January to October, anything can happen to this child whose health is not okay. It moved from us being, this is bad, this is happening, to us being thankful that even though this is happening, God has still given us the ability to be able to get her help at the time that we could get help for her, to us being hopeful that it is going to actually be okay and she'll be fine. But when we got to South Africa and then the doctor saw her again and he said he couldn't help her, I remember the time when in that hospital room in the doctor's office, the moment he said I can't do anything, like my husband just literally broke down in that moment. Like he couldn't even be in the, like he had to leave at some point because he was that broken, like he was crying that bad, because now I think it's the worst place to be in, where there's a health condition and then you're being told we can't do anything about it. So it now moved from that, from us being grateful that the opportunity has been there, to us now being scared and thinking she's going to die, because we were told she only has like a 10% chance of actually making it. So now the fear constantly the whole time was just that she's going to die. In my mind, I saw it so many times in 2017 in that hotel room, because we're like at the hotel for a long time. I kept on, like every night I would just like cry, because in my mind I kept on seeing her not making it, and I kept on thinking I'm gonna lose my child at what, 1 year 3 months. She was 1 year 3 months at the time. Like how, like what happened? Why is this happening? So there was a lot for me, a lot of fear that she's actually not going to make it. And then from that fear of she's not going to make it to them doing the operation, and then the first time that I saw her from theater connected to all of those things, or like I've never, like it really just like shattered my heart. Like I had, oh, I can't even put it into words. It was just very, like it's something that I can never get out of my head. It's a fear, it's a like almost paralyzing to see her like that, connected to all of those things. And in my mind, I was like God, if it was me, this was gonna be easier. Like if I was on that bed, it was gonna be fine. I'm grown, I was gonna take it. She had all of those tubes in her mouth, on her, like everywhere. It was a lot to take in. It was a lot to see. And even though she had survived and come out of the operation room, the doctor kept on saying the next 24 hours are very critical. So it was just, and we couldn't be with her in ICU. We just had to, we had like 3 visiting times, like in the morning, at lunch, and at night. It was one of the most draining things ever.
Sorry, you couldn't stay with her the whole time?
No, we were not allowed to stay with her the whole time.
Oh.
I mean, she just had to be. We'd only be with her. The most was like an hour, and that was the lunchtime visit. It was
Even
when
at
I was
her
an hour.
age, I think that's terrible. The fact that she's at that age, you would think that the mother can or parents, can stay with her at that age. It's shocking for me.
I see they don't allow. Worse in South Africa. In Zambia, I had found like the Zambian doctors even knew I had gone to a place I used to, like, I can't leave her here because from my interaction with the health professionals here in Zambia, I was the one who was actually telling them certain things they had to do for her. So I preferred being there to be able to tell them and say, need to do this, or let's try doing this and stuff like that. But in South Africa, it was different. There they wouldn't allow, like, you can't even, the most you can do is just be outside.
How do you trust, with all the fear of losing your baby and potentially not seeing her again, thinking you might go home and come back, and are you going to see her? Is she still going to be alive? And not being allowed to be with the baby so little.
Other parents, like we saw it with other parents, and that was a scary thing, because sometimes you'd go see the kids, like at visiting hour, you go see the kids, it's visiting hour, but then someone has a crisis in there, so all the doctors go in and they close it out and they tell you can't go in, but then you don't know whose child it is that's having a crisis, so you're all panicking. And then in maybe like an hour or so, when you're supposed to have gone in, the doctors come out and they're supposed to call one of, so every time you go there, you don't know if you're the parent who's going to get called because the child has actually died. It's just different mental torture of its own.
Yeah, and torture for me is, torture is the right word to use there, because I can't imagine the pain, the fear, the mental instability that's going on in your mind.
Exactly, it's so draining. Like till today, like I think it's something that people never talk about enough, because I see parents who, like, a child will just have a flu. Even for me, like my son these days, he'll just have a flu, and just him being uncomfortable will already get me off my usual positioning. I'll be like so irritated. I want to get him comfortable. I want to get him help. That's just a flu.
And but that's then, that's coming from a mother who's been through loss because of something that has happened. Speaking from myself, for example, and many other parents that I know, if your child even has a little cold or has a little cough, you're already in panic mode. Is my child okay? I need to do this, I need to do that. So, and this can't even be compared to anything like what you've been through. So I can imagine that with the second child, what you must potentially go into panic mode each time something happens.
Yeah. And it was just like, even when we found out that I was pregnant, I was not happy at all. Like I was, I even, like, I'm always saying God just like he plans out certain things for us, and because at the time you're not seeing the bigger picture. Like I remember the first day I found out I was pregnant, because I kept on sleeping a whole lot, which I thought was normal because I was very tired taking care of Alexis. But when I actually said, I think there's something wrong here, and then I did that pregnancy test, and there was those 2 lines, and I literally just broke down in the bathroom, and I just, in my mind, I just told God, I said, I don't know how you're going to do this, but I'm not going to have another child. Because for me, it took me back to seeing Alexis on that bed connected to all of those things, and thinking, what if, because I remember the doctor mentioning it several times, that if he had another child, they might also go through the same thing. So I started to think, I can't do this again. Like, I don't have it in me to go through this again. So for me, and just the thought of having a sick child and a baby, I never saw it happening ever at all. But that was then, like, when my husband was there. What I didn't know that I was actually going to go through it without my husband even by my side.
And even more so, that was now a whole... where would your mind have been if you had known that, So tell me, from the moment that you found out you were pregnant, what exactly? I know you've said that you were not happy and you broke down in tears, and what was going through your mind was potentially, how can I go through this again? What were, and I know you say your husband was there and you didn't know he wasn't going to be there, but what were your thoughts around that? Did you ever think about terminating the child? Is that something you don't believe in, or?
It's something I don't believe in. Obviously, I'm a Christian, and it's something I definitely don't believe in. It's something that is not even a conversation starter, like with a person like your husband, but I had told him point blank period, I said, we need to get rid of the child. Like, I can't, like, I literally could not, my mind would not take me there at all.
Yeah.
And he was like, no, like, I think he was just worried, like, probably for the first few hours, but then after, he was very like, God has allowed it to happen. I said, I'm the one who's going to carry this child. I'm the one who's the mom. I'm the one who's nursing Alexis. He was there with me like throughout, but like, I think there's a certain level of pressure that's on the mom either way. And I
Because
just
you're
said,
carrying.
I can't. So, yeah, so I was like, I'm gonna be carrying. I can't do it, because I told him, I said, if we don't get rid of this child like in a proper way, the child will still die, because I think I'm too stressed to be able to carry this child to full term. So there was all of that. And I even, again, on the regrets, like, I never, like, I think probably like a month after, I did change my mind, like, okay, we're not gonna abort the child, but we never bought anything for him. Like, I was not interested. I was
There was
still
no
trying to
real
wrap
preparation, excitement, and all of that.
like, yeah, we're moving around like at a mall or something. He's like, can we just at least buy one thing? And I was like, no. But then after he died, it now hit me a whole lot. I said I should have been happy with him. I should have let him, because like, my son has never ever won anything or gotten anything that his dad had like intentionally got for him ever. So I have those moments where I'm like, at least if I had probably been, like, if I had let him really just celebrate it, and if I celebrated him
with him,
with my husband, I think it was going to be so much easier for me as well. But
yeah, so he championed this pregnancy. He championed it. He wanted it. But then I guess if
a boy, that's when he said I should name him. Let's name him Kape after his name and all of that. Yeah, so he was very excited.
Yeah,
I was.
if you think about it, I mean, the way I'm seeing it is that you have got something from him, which is Kape, and Kape has got you, that your husband loved, and the mother of his child, and also you've got each other. So I feel like in a way he has given your son something. He's given your son a life and a love, because had he agreed with you to terminate the baby, Kape wouldn't be here. And so he has given Kape something. He's given Kape a chance at life.
Yeah, you make a very good point, actually. And yeah, like, honestly, if Kappa wasn't here, I wouldn't be here as well, because there had been moments a lot after my husband died where I just felt like I didn't even need to do anything to myself. I was really convinced that with the pain that I was going through and how miserable I was, that I was just going to die with the child in me, and then that Alexis was going to remain on her own. Then after Alexis passed, I was so sure I was gonna die. Like, if it wasn't for Kape, I don't think I would still be able to hang around. So yeah, like, God knew, hey, if Kape wasn't there, because now he's like literally the only one I have. So yeah.
Wow. So you felt that you would die of a broken heart. You felt that you would die of the pain anyway. That's a very, very dark place to be. How was that for you?
It was like, it had moved from me crying because I lost my husband to me, like, when I cried, it was always, I'm going to leave Alexis alone, and I don't know how she's going to handle life, because she already has a health complication that a lot of people around don't understand. But I was trying to be there for her, but my body was failing me. Like, I think about maybe like 1 or 2, like, I had incidences where I was kind of like bleeding through my pregnancy, because I think the stress and everything. So like miscarriage scares, sort of. So I was so sure at some point I was going to lose my son, and I was also going to die. Like, there'd be, I don't know if you've ever been in a place where you feel so much pain, you literally can't, like, your body can't take it, and you literally feel you literally feel yourself going. I don't even know how I can explain it. Like, you can feel that the pain has just consumed you, and there's nothing you can do, and that you're going. Like, you can literally feel each and every bit of your energy going. Your ability to breathe is not there anymore. You're losing, like, you're slowly, your pulse, everything is getting slower, and you're just fading away. To being able again to come back from that and go through it again another day is what I was going through almost every single day. And
every single day. Listen, I mean, I've not been in your shoes, but as you're talking, I'm imagining, and I'm putting myself in your shoes, and I feel this tightness in my heart, I feel this, I feel like I can feel what you're telling me, even though I can't. So I don't want to patronize you by saying I know exactly what you went through or anything like that. But as you're explaining this, I'm truly feeling tightness within my chest, within my whole being, because I can empathize with what you're saying. And to go through that every single day and to feel as though you're gonna die, or as if perhaps you don't want to be. Did you want to be there?
No, because it became tiring, because like I felt, to me, after a certain time, like it felt almost like I always thought, but like it's better you just like end it rather than I have to go through this. And then somehow almost like the phoenix, I think I would like to liken it to something like that, like how the phoenix burns to ashes and then comes back, because I really wasn't getting it. So I was like, it was just these emotions that I was going through. And then over time, I started to feel like one day I will not have the strength to be able to come out of it, and that I'll really just go. So yeah.
But you're here, and God is good. And do you think there was some strength within you because of the fact that Alexis was still around at that time, and some strength within you because the fact that there was a baby within you, and potentially deep down you knew that you had to survive for them? I don't know.
For Alexis especially. For my son, there was a part of me that still was very scared that what if he comes and then he probably also has another health complication. So I'm not really ready to go through that. But for Alexis, it was more because Alexis was like very, very close to her dad, like super, super close to her dad. So one of the things for me that I felt I owed it to her, apart from just like her health, to be there for her as well. So, and the baby, there would be moments where I'm like, Alexis will have a brother, and I think her life is going to be so much better. But there'll be moments, like maybe 70% of it was really just, I can't do this. But it's those 30% that I think somehow still carried me through, the 30% that, you know, Alexis still needs me, and I felt like I need to give birth to this child. At least I'd have had something that my husband left me again. Like I wanted to see him. I wanted to touch him, and I wanted him to be there. So I would say yes, both Alexis and Kape did, like, if really it wasn't for my kids, I wouldn't be here, honestly. So I think there's a lot of strength that came from that place.
Yeah. Let me ask you a very personal question.
Yeah.
And you don't have to answer this if you don't want to. Within all of that, did you ever contemplate suicide?
I did. I think must have been 5 months pregnant. I did. I think that there was a month when like I literally just, those were the thoughts. Like I'll just be driving and I'm like I could just hit into a tree or something, or just get into the wrong lane. Things like that, always, all the time. And then again, after Alexis had the brain injury, like literally the night itself when she had that attack, before I even knew that she had a brain injury, the night when she had that incident in surgery that led to the brain injury, I wanted to just jump off the building, the hospital, so many times that night. And then also after she passed, I had those moments.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah.
To know that you feel like you can't handle life, you just can't take what's being thrown at you. How old are you, Sandra?
I'm now 31. I'll be turning 32 in May. And I was 26 when I became a widow. So yeah.
Wow. So you were 26 when you became a widow, and you were going through all that in your early 20s, early to mid 20s. That's very young. That's very young. And how old were you when
I'm like, wow, they're young.
The what, sorry?
So I look at the 25-year-olds and 26-year-olds around now, and I think they're young. So I was pretty young at the time.
Yeah, and you're still very young. You're still very young, and you've just gone through all of this life experience that a lot of people will never experience in the way that you've experienced it by your age. So I think you're very, very strong. For you to be here, to be able to sit here and tell your story, I really commend you. I feel like you're such a strong person, and where you got your strength from, you probably don't know either, because from what you've said, you just didn't want to be here, but somehow I feel that you're blessed because
Yeah,
You're
and that's how I
here.
know it's God, because I don't really have an explanation for it.
It's God.
It can only be God. Yeah.
I believe
Really.
that. As a Christian, I believe that it's God, that they say God won't put you through something he can't get you through. Did you ever question your faith in all of this? Question God?
A lot, a whole lot. After my husband died, a lot. Like I stopped praying for a couple of months. But then with Alexis and the condition that she was in, because like I came from a place where God made a way, like I mentioned, financially for us to get her help out of the country and to just even make her come out of that operation. Like she survived. She healed very quickly as compared to what the doctors had expected. So I saw God's hand. I saw him coming through to God allowing my husband to die just 4 months after. I couldn't wrap my head around it. I couldn't make sense. My husband is the one whose job had as on insurance. The job I had could not afford insurance. So for me, it was just like, okay, so you get her out of this situation, you get her out of the theater and the operation and everything is better, but then she can't continue getting this medical help because now the person who's in charge of it is not even here anymore. And like, also, what is it that happened to my husband that is so bigger than you that you couldn't be able to get him out of it? Because I mean, he would have easily just gotten sick and come out of it. I didn't think death was necessary, so there was a lot of like, oh, there's been so many moments where I just questioned God. So after my husband died, there was that period where like I didn't even go to church for like 3 years after he died. I didn't pray for a long time, probably like a year. I wasn't even able to pray. But then over time, slowly, God has always been the only one that I'd known. So I got back to him. And especially because of Alexis, like I'm always saying, I've never prayed for anyone as much as I've prayed for Alexis. It was about praying for her. It was about praying and asking God to provide for these kids that he's given me, because I can't do this on my own. So then with that, the more I got closer again to God, and I was praying and I was getting back in form and shape in terms of my relationship with him. And then Alex had the brain injury 2 years after her dad died. So then that now took me back again, because what the brain injury did is that it just like completely disabled her, like her cognitive skills, she lost them. She lost all motor skills. She couldn't even swallow her saliva. She couldn't see properly. She lost her sight. Like she literally lost everything. So in another way, I lost her. So like I'm always saying, for my daughter, like I thought I lost her twice, because after the brain injury, when she lost everything, she was a new child. I had to learn her all over again. I had to love her differently than I loved the Alexis prior. I had to care for her and tend to her differently. And then now she died. Then I lost her again, like the second time, which was like the final one. So in that period, my faith went through so many things. Like even now, that's why I'm saying it's God, really, because I never even seen, like after Alexis died, especially, because the whole time like I'd stopped praying, then I got back to God, I stopped praying, then I got back to God. But like after she died, I just said, okay, this is the last straw and I'm not doing this again. Like I'm done. I get it, God, you help other people, you don't help me. I have tried to pray the best way I know how. I have tried to fast and do everything, but you're still not coming through for me. So because for me, what I had begged him for was to heal her. I guess he did now, thinking about it, but I wanted her healed in this life, in this world, in this space.
To be
And
here
not that
and be in a better place. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. So there was a lot of shaking in terms of my faith. There was a lot of disconnect in terms of me and God, and our relationship. There's a time when I didn't even want anyone to tell me about God anymore, because I felt like I had tried him one too many times, but he really just wasn't coming through for me.
Yeah.
But
And to feel God's hand with helping you, and to feel God's hand take away from you at the same time, I can understand how that's confusing. Yeah. Can we go and talk about your husband? We've talked about him passing away. How did this happen? I know that he had a headache, and I know that he came to you, so I do know that story, but just for people that are listening, like, could you just give us a brief of what happened to your husband?
Yes, so obviously in the period when we were in South Africa, because we initially had planned, because we went there knowing Alexis just has one hole in her heart. 90% chance of her healing. She's out of there and we're back home, and she'd never even need like another surgery or whatever. But then things changed and she had a bigger complication. So we had to stay in South Africa longer. He was footing all of the bills financially himself. The insurance came in, but we were just paying the hospital. And what they were paying the hospital was only when Alexis is admitted. So that was like when she had the operation. But things like the reviews, because like she was in the hospital for about roughly maybe a month and 2 weeks, and we were in South Africa for about 3 months. So for the other like 1 month and a half, he was footing the bills, like the hotel bills, the hospital itself, because then she'd have like outpatient visits with the doctor. He had to like pay for all of those on his own. There was a lot of pressure on his end financially, and just he kept on like working nonstop just to be able to make ends meet. So he was very stressed, and the time when he complained about the headache was when we had gone for, because the doctor said he wanted to see Alexis like every 4 months. So we had taken her for her review. That was like 4 months after she had her first surgery, taken her for a review. And then we were coming back. So because Alexis's condition was it made her immune system extremely weak. So she'd catch every single thing, like any flu, any bug, she'd catch it. She got sick on our way back. We just landed and had to go to the hospital. So got to the hospital, we were there for about 2 days, and then he got discharged. He brought us home, and then he left work early. And I figured he was tired because he kept on moving back and forth, hospital and his workplace. Got home, I think that was like, must have been like around 4 p.m. from work, that is. And then he was busy working. By like 9 p.m. he said, I have a headache. Only thing that he said. The whole time he was okay. He just said, I have a headache. So I said, okay, let me get you a painkiller. I was going to the kitchen and he followed me and he was like, babe, I have a headache. And I was like, okay, let me just get the painkiller and I'll give it. And then he just, before I knew it, he was on the ground. He was hitting the ground. He was praying and he was saying, God, not now. And like, I could tell he was in a lot of pain because he kept on saying, I have a headache. I have a headache. And like, he just kept on repeating certain things. So I then realized that, okay, something's wrong here. And then I just told him, go sit. Let me just get something to wear, and I take it to the hospital. Just as he was sitting there on the couch, I even saw him like slowly falling down onto the couch. And that's how he like collapsed. So from there, I had the neighbors help me get him into the car. We go to the hospital. By the time we're getting to the hospital, like he was like unconscious. So the doctors said we need to have him get like a CT scan. By the time we're getting to the hospital that was close to home didn't have the CT scan. So we're taking him to another hospital with the CT scan. We're getting to the hospital that has a CT scan. He had already started seizing. By the time it was like midnight, he was also like all on these tubes and just being sedated because he couldn't stop seizing, minus the sedation. And that was midnight. By 6 in the morning, the results from the CT scan came in, and the doctors called me and said that there's a vein in his brain that burst, and that he was already brain dead. So also, in just a couple of hours, he has a headache. To next, the doctors are telling me that he's brain dead. So at the time, I didn't understand what being brain dead is. And they were really trying to convince me and make me understand that, look, this person, technically, medically, he's gone. But for me, I even remember telling the doctor, I was like, look, God has come, like he came through for our child. Our child is just from having an operation. Like we're just literally coming from her review, and the doctor says she's doing so much better. So the same God who performed that miracle is going to bring my husband back. But he was on, because I told him like they must just keep everything the way it was, the life support and everything. He was on life support for just about, that was 31st October, and about 2 days roughly. And by the 3rd, like his body completely just shut down, like life support wasn't even doing anything. So yeah, that's how he died as well.
So it's pretty instant. So within a few days from having a headache to passing away.
We were burying my husband. He looked like he didn't even like he was just sleeping. That's how he was looking like. Because he was like super intact, like nothing even happened to his skin. Like he was just, the days were very, very short. There was no deterioration on his body in terms of him being sick or anything. There was nothing. Like he just literally shut down in minutes, because technically, according to the doctors, from that 21 hours, like 9 p.m. to midnight, in that short space of time is when when he got brain dead. So he died in between those hours, technically, according to them. Like even these 2-3 days I'm talking about, he had already gone, and he was just
gone.
yeah.
That's a lot of trauma. What was going through your mind at that time? Your heart?
Like I was just, that's why I keep on saying, like, given the whole 6 years is very hard for me, because I feel I never processed it, because like I just did not believe it. I did think about death for my daughter. I think I'd mentioned here, there's a part when we had gone to South Africa, and they kept on, for me, the fear was, I'm gonna lose her, she's gonna die. I knew someone might die. That is what I knew, that someone might die. And that was our daughter, obviously, because what I'd never imagined would be my husband. How? Like, he was 8 years old when he died. 28. Like, I remember turning 28, and I was so sad because I was still so young. And he, like even now, like I'm 31 and I'll be turning 32, and I always feel like I have outgrown him somehow, because he died at 28. He was like a kid.
Yeah.
So I didn't understand, like, what happened, like how could his very best, like I just couldn't wrap my head around it at all. And I think I was in that space for a very long time.
And I guess in your heart and in your mind, you were supposed to be taking care of Alexis together. You were supposed to be going through this journey of Alexis together, and at least you had each other.
Yeah, and he was excited about the child. So I mean, if God gave me this child, then why again should this child be an orphan? So now all of this didn't just make any sense. Like nothing was adding up.
Yeah.
So it was
so it's just, even for me to think about just the pain you must have been through. I can just imagine a place of numbness and not really knowing why or how.
I remember, like, at the hospital when my mom came, and like, that was the first time I think even her, like, that was the first time she saw me break down, because that's one of the other things about me, is that I do not easily show my emotions. So I remember that night she came, and then I said, Mom, I can't do this, because like I couldn't now. Like I was literally weak everywhere. Like my heart couldn't take it anymore. Like you're in a space where you're always, like, I was just at the hospital praying for Alexis and just begging with God that she makes it. And then I was doing the same thing for my husband. Like, how? You know, we're doing it together, and it was easier then. We were holding each other's hands and praying together. There would be moments when I'm so broken. I remember, like, when Alexis was in the operating room, and we were told her operation would take 7 hours. It took 12 hours, and the extra 6 hours, 5-6 hours of her being in the operator, like I was going crazy, and he's the one who was calming me down and praying. He's the one who, but then there I was alone, and I was pregnant, and he was on the other side with all of these tubes in him in just a short space of time. So how did we get here is just on, like, kept on running through my mind. And I'm like, God, where the hell are you? Like, what is going on? And why are you letting it happen to me, especially? Like, what have I done wrong? So it was just a whole lot of trying to process, not even processing, because I think it took a long time for me to process. At the time, it was just me trying. It's like I felt like there was so many tabs open in my mind and in my emotions that it was very overwhelming for me.
Yeah, I can imagine. When you describe it, overwhelming is what comes to mind as well.
Yeah.
You mentioned your mom. Did you have, so it sounds like Cape was your support system, even though you were each other's support system, I'm sure, but it sounds like he was your support system. So now he's gone. You mentioned your mom. Through all of this, even whilst he was here and at the time that he had gone, who was your support system? Did you have family?
My mom, my sisters, and my friends. They're like literally, like, I don't know what I would have done if I didn't have if I didn't have the type of friends and family that I have. Like I would tell you, because through everything, in as much as everyone says I'm strong, it will be the small things that would need me to do on a daily basis that at some point I was not able to do. Like just get up and take Cape to school, get up and take Alexis to school, you know, get up and go for it. There was a period where I was not able to, especially like after my husband died. So because Alexis was sick this whole time, I was literally away from work like the entire year. And then now my husband dies. How do you even ask for time off from work like that? But still, they were kind enough to give me like an extra month So in that period, yes, I still was getting paid, but then there was so many bills. Alexis's health was just ridiculous in terms of the bills, and there's a lot of things that needed my attention and my time. Even just the kids themselves. Like my mom has literally, she literally raised the kids for me and with me, because like after my husband died, Alexis was sick and then I was pregnant. She just moved in with me and she's been with me since. My sisters, I have 2 sisters. They're just, I can't even draw up a list as to how many things they've done, how much they've gone out of their way to just be there for me and my kids, my friends. Yeah, even the whole fundraise, I was never going to be able to do if it wasn't for my family and friends, honestly. Because for starters, like just for me to come out and be able to ask for help was a very big thing. And just to put together that whole setup, the technicalities of it, I was not going to be able to do on my own if it wasn't for my family and friends. They literally were the ones in the background, making sure everything is going right, making sure that the video is done, making sure that it's going to the right platform, making sure they're keeping tabs on the money that's coming in, all of that. That was like my family and friends. And
these are the other things that God has put into your life to help you manage the situation. Whereas I guess we'll never understand why this needed to happen to you, but God also put things to make sure that you get through it. When you talk about being the strong person, I agree. Undoubtedly, you're a very strong woman. What I was going to say is that I don't agree that somebody should just be that strong person and everybody sees them as such. I can relate to that because I'm the strong one, whether it's amongst my friends or my family, but you're human. You're also a human being that's capable of breaking, that's capable of feeling everything else that somebody who is not deemed to be the strong one feels. So I'm really happy for you that you've had all these people that you say that you've had that have been able to carry you through your toughest times in life. Yeah. And I've also truly learned to value friendship more and more over the years, and friends truly just step up at a time where you need them to. And again, that's God. And I feel like I want to be that woman as well that is able to just step up for other people. And I am that person, but I think we can all do more, and I certainly can do more. And I want to be that person that's able to step up for somebody else, because I've had the hand of other people.
Exactly, me too. And that's exactly where I'm at. And it's such things that I've learned through the whole process. Like there's a lot, the person that I was 5 years, 6 years ago is not the person that I am now. There's so many things that I have learned, despite all of the pain that those lessons came with, but they've been very eye-opening and very, for lack of better terms, enriching, kind of, because there's a respect I have for people, even just the fundraise, the response from everyone, the help from people, not just financially, but even just the prayers, the checkups. Even till today, I have people that always, you, for example, and your family, like your entire family, your sisters, or like you're always checking up on me. You're always crying for me, because I feel there's moments when it comes to overwhelming for me that I can't even pray for myself. But I know what carries me through is because I have some people out there. It's like I have an army of God's children who are still on my side regardless, and they're rooting for me even in moments when I can't feel it. So there's times when things become too overwhelming, and there's some strength that from for some reason comes from somewhere, and I know it comes from those places of prayer that I even have no idea about sometimes. But I have like a deep respect for people, and just how like really humanity can be so kind and helpful.
That's amazing. And we're all sisters. Like I'm always going to be there for you. Reach out if you have a sister in me.
Yeah,
please, if you need me, if you need to reach out to me, don't hesitate. I know we're in different countries and things like that, but I am here, so don't think that you don't have a sister in me as well.
thank you. I know I have a sister in you. Thank you, and I really do appreciate it. You're one of the most patient people I've ever interacted with.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
One of the most patient. How come?
Like in terms of understanding where someone's at, because I've had people, especially the time before Alexis passed, who would actually like really take it personally. Because what for me, and I'm still working on it, but like I was even thinking about it, must have been like last night. One of the things that happens to me is when I'm overwhelmed, I shut down, for lack of better terms, and I'm not able to communicate. So someone will send me a text message. Sometimes people will try and call me and I can't even pick their call, or I can't even respond to a text because at the time, but and funny enough, at the same time, like in that space of time, that period, people would still be able to see me on social media. I would still be posting stuff, and I'm always telling, I think I was telling one of my sisters or my mom that for me, those people who know me are able to notice that there's two extremes. It's either I completely like just get off social media, or when I start to overpost stuff, then there's something wrong. Then I'm either like extremely overwhelmed and there's something I'm trying to hide in terms of what I'm really feeling. So those who know that when I have a period where like I'm over posting stuff, that there's something going on, and when it is times like I get to refrain that there's something going on. So then there's people who don't understand because they'll be able to like see me posting a lot of things on social media, but like when they try to like probably call me or text me, I'm not responding. But for you, like you text me and I'll take a long time to respond, but you'd still like have grace for me. There's people who actually like take it personally and even call me out like, oh no, I've been trying to reach you, but you're not like responding. And even when I try and explain, like, look, I was overwhelmed and I could not get back to you at the time, they'll be like, yeah, but we'll see you on social media. But I'm like, it's different. Like for me, I feel like when sometimes there's moments when I'm on social media and that's like my me time, and I'm trying to decompress and like an outlet to release whatever it is that I'm going through, and I can't really focus on communicating at that time. So like you're one of those who are like, you've been very patient and kind to understand these like moments I've gone through. So I really do appreciate that.
Oh, thank you. No, that means a lot to me. I think I understand people in general. I try my best to understand people, and I feel like I can completely understand what you're saying when you're going through a moment of trying to just do you and cope with life. That's fine. And I also understand that when people blame you and say, but we've seen you on social media, etc., sometimes they're also dealing with their own traumas. Exactly. And things from where they've been neglected in the past, or where maybe they feel abandoned like by you. So I completely understand, and I think that it's important to give everybody the space to do what they need to do before they can continue. So thank you for that. I apologize about my camera, these technical difficulties, but just so you know, I'm here. I'm here, I'm listening. So I want to talk about obviously we've talked about your partner passing away and your mum being your support system and everything else. What space would you say that you're in now? Because some years have gone by, and at one point you were in the space where you couldn't even cope, you didn't want to be here. How did things unfold for you and change for you? At what points in your life did you start to realize that maybe perhaps you're getting into a better space? Or actually, I should ask you, are you in a better space?
Well, I would say I think I am in a better space, because now I'm like, even I think from our conversation the past couple of minutes, you'd be able to realize that I've mentioned a lot about how a few years back I'd blame myself for this, I'd blame myself for that, but now looking at the bigger picture, I do realize like now I think I have a better understanding of certain things, and I'm being intentionally kind to myself and giving myself grace as I'm going through all of this. And I would say that started to happen, like I think not even so long ago, like just in December is when I had these moments where I'm like after my daughter died, it was more, again, the pickup was not necessarily that, like I was doing anything for myself. It was really just Kape needs me, my son needs me. Now, like he's like, by the time Kape is going to grow, he talks about his dad and his sister, like literally every day he'll ask me, actually, which also at a certain point in time was like one of the very triggering things that he'd always ask almost every day. But now, like, and I know that he'll never forget them, but also he would never, like, even for his sister, he would never like really remember even like ever playing with her. So he grew up like never really having his sister and his dad in his life like that. So for me, the greater chunk of me getting up and fighting for life again and just like doing the best that I can was stemming from a place of, I need him to have a good life. But what I was really doing was just surviving and not living. So what over time I started to feel, it was still very draining, And then I got to a place where I realized that if I really want him to have a good life, I would need to be able to pour into him completely. And I can't pour into him if there's nothing in me, because there wasn't anything in me. It was just from a place of, I need him to get to this place, I need him to get to that place. So when I started to have this conversation with myself about how do I really give him the best life that he deserves, the best life he deserves is when I am pouring into me first, and then that way I'm able to, because I can't give him what I don't have. I would claim I'm giving him love and support, but if I'm empty truly, then I'm not doing him any good. So the more I became intentional about pouring into myself first is when I started to realize that, like, I was starting to get into a better place. It was a bit harder because pouring into yourself also is when I now had to sit down and say, okay, yeah, my husband died, but did I really process that? Or did I just pack it somewhere? And then if I did pack it somewhere, how is it impacting my life now? What is it doing to me that unknowingly I might also be doing to Kape? What trauma did it leave on me that unknowingly I might be dropping onto him as well? So in me trying to not do these things to him, I have to work on me first. I have to unpack this trauma. I have to work around it. I have to be extremely self-aware and realize, and that's what healing is. I think healing is actually even harder than a lot of people do realize, because it's not just about you knowing that I'm in this place and that this trauma happened. It's about how is it impacting my life and what am I doing to better myself? And if it's impacting me in a negative way, how do I stop this from happening? Because I don't want it to move on to my son. So when I started to have those conversations with myself is when I started to see the bigger pictures about a lot of different things. When I started becoming kind to myself, I would find myself in moments where I'm reacting in a certain way. And then I even know that's really not who I am, but it's maybe because I'm very stressed at that point in time. Parenting is hard, but single parenting is even harder. So there'll be moments when I'm overwhelmed. Like right now, currently, just to make ends meet, I'm working like 2 jobs. It's not easy. I barely have time for anything. I barely even have time for my own son. So I'm being intentional about a lot of things, about still being a parent, about still pitching up for him. So because of being that intentional and because of the healing that I'm seeking is when I started to feel like, you know what, I think I'm making progress and then I'm getting better. And is when I started to I literally let everything to God and said, now I trust you because I clearly can't do this on my own. There's a lot still that I need to work around and I can't do it on my own. So that's the space that I'm at right now. And yeah, just being intentional about everything.
So being intentional is where you found that you've been able to start to put one foot in front of the other, start to get into a more positive mental space and everything else. And again, I can relate to the single parenting thing. I'm a single parent. I've been a single parent always. I've never not been a single parent, sorry. And yeah, I work 2 jobs, so I can see where, you know, you can have struggles as a single parent and need to still be able to be emotionally available for your child. So I completely understand when you say that. I wanted to ask you as well about the help, because I know when Alexis May, you mentioned earlier your friends did an appeal and were behind the scenes of all of that. Tell me a little bit about the public and how people poured into you at that stage and how you got the help and what help you got for Alexis.
Yeah, so initially what that fundraise was about was just to get us enough money to get her to South Africa and have her feeding tube changed, because she now lost every skill there is, even chewing and being able to swallow. So she was using a feeding tube. So initially when the feeding tube was put in her, that was like in 2020 in January. She was only supposed to have had it for about 6 months, and then they were supposed to change it to a more permanent one. But then COVID happened for starters, and then also I lost my job at the same time. So there was no money or anything for me to like fly her out of the country and have the tube changed. So then over time, I thought like we could get away with using the same tube. But what I didn't know is that the longer the tube stayed, it started to cause an infection in her because it wasn't supposed to have been there for that long. So that infection now had us in the hospital like almost every month. And she was on like different antibiotics because of the infection. And that was just making like her entire health complication even worse. So that is when we had the appeal and asked for some money to be able to fly her out. And like in just talking as we were preparing for the whole thing, we kept on hoping that even as we asked for this money, that we just don't get money to help with the tube, but we would get money for her upkeep, because Alexis now after the brain injury, I had also like developed like seizures. And just to keep those seizures, like in a day, she'd have like, when she's not on the meds, she'd have like even maybe 15 seizures in a day. When she was on the meds, she'd have like probably even 3 or 5 seizures. But and she needed about, I think maybe 4 or 5, now I can't even like really remember, but about 4 or 5 different types of medications to be able to maintain these seizures or to keep them at a certain number. Because with every seizure that is not controlled, it was causing more harm to her damaged brain. So we were just hoping and praying that even as we raise these funds to take her out and have the tube changed, we'll be able to also get some money for her upkeep, because like just one bottle of medication to last for a week would cost like roughly about 1,000 kwacha, which like I'm trying to convert into dollars or pounds. I'm not quite sure how much that is. But yeah, it was quite pricey. So we're really hoping that we'd get money to also just help like with her general upkeep, and then to also help with, there are a few things that I discovered through the support groups that I joined with like kids that had like brain injuries. There's some other stuff that I learned about, like oxygen therapies and just things she would use for her physiotherapy. So we're really hoping we'll be able to have enough money that could help us like get even the other things. And surprisingly, we managed to raise enough money for not just to fly her out, but also to get her medication and to help with her upkeep and to buy a few of the other equipments that she needed. In just about 3 days, we managed to raise that money. We had the tube changed, and she was so much better. Like even the few things that I managed to get for her, I could see the improvement. The medication also, like it really helped. Like she never had a moment where like she was short on supply. There was, good medication over time. So we did the fundraise in March 2021, and then unfortunately in November we lost her. So some things that I had even like ordered for her, because like I literally went all out and spent all of the money buying all of these equipments that I'd learned about, buying, books to study to help her, getting more medication, getting more vitamins that could help her. Some things were coming in like weeks after I buried her. That's when some of these things were actually coming in. Like I was getting calls like, oh, this is, the airport, we've received this and that, like she had already gone. So
did you find that was adding to your trauma, and everything, that you're still receiving things that could have been of help?
And it would just always take me back to square one. Every time a call came in, every time, someone said, oh, you ordered this, and now it's here, because like I'd waited for it for a long time. Some things I needed to get for her, like you had to be on a list for about a couple of months before you actually cleared off that list, and then you're able to get to purchase that thing. So funny enough, all of this now started coming through like after she had passed. So it was extremely triggering. But like again, God always comes through, and I'm glad that literally everyone that I worked with, or the people who are working around those things at the time, were all very kind enough to understand that I couldn't even deal with it, and most of them just found ways around how they could deal with it. And some probably have like the things shipped back, some things I just like had donated to other foundations and support groups that had kids who needed that but couldn't afford
that
it.
stuff.
So that's
okay. That's very kind. Sorry, when you saw me looking, if you saw me looking down earlier, when you talked about the 1,000 kwacha, I was doing the conversion. So it's about £50 for a bottle of medication, and that's a lot of money. And if you think about the strength of the pound to the kwacha, it is even more. So the pound is quite strong. So it's really quite a lot to be able to sustain.
And that was just like for one bottle of medication for one type, and she did about 5 just for the seizures. That's minus even a heart medication. So it was a lot of money that was required.
A lot was required. I understand that. So you've obviously, I mean, thank God you managed to get some of the help you could, but whatever was written for Alexis and the stars is what was written, and unfortunately that didn't turn out the way that you wanted it to. But I guess that's the power of the public as well, where people are able to come together for a good cause.
True.
So I think again, that's something I love about people, when they're able to just say, you know what, this is something we need to step up for. So the space that you're at now, you've obviously said that you've come through for the sake of your son. You felt like you needed to pour into him, but first pour into yourself. You talked in the past, not in the past, sorry, just previously today, you talked about not having been in a relationship at all since Do you envision yourself getting into another relationship? Have you thought about that? Or
Thought about it, yes. I actually was almost probably going to get into one, just like must have been like a few months after. I'm not quite sure if it was before her. I think it was before her brain injury. It was before Alexis' brain injury. I was almost getting into. I thought of getting into one. I thought I was prepared. So I was almost, trying to, because there have been people obviously who come through and make passes here and there, you can tell, but like I've just like never really opened myself up to it. So there was a time, yes, when I was like open to it, but then like after she had the injury again, it took me back to a certain space. And then now, in terms of a relationship, I'm not honestly quite sure. If it does happen, that would be okay. Like I'm not like totally against it as I was before, but for me, I'm more on the probably having another kid part. Like I would want capital with a sibling, but the relationship bit of it, I'm not extremely sure. But I think over time, I will get to that place. Yeah.
okay, wow. Well, I mean, that's amazing. I feel like for you to say that I would like to have another kid, considering you were telling me that you didn't even want another kid at all. I understand why, because of where you were.
Yeah.
But for you to now have come through these years and say, you know what, I would like another sibling, regardless of whatever's happened in my past with my child. That's amazing.
Yeah, it is.
I like that for you. It tells me that you're, even you saying you're ready to get in, you think you might potentially be able to get into another relationship. That tells me that you're growing with your situation.
True.
And do you feel that you'd be able to get into a relationship and still be able to hold on to what you and Cape had? And what would it take for somebody? Would they have to have that understanding for your situation?
Obviously, the person would have to have an understanding of my situation because, like I think I've been through quite a lot. It's still stuff that I'm working on. Like even like I mentioned, like one of the things that I'm being very intentional about is like getting the help for myself and getting myself to a certain place. So to do that, even just on my own, like I said, I'm now being more kind to myself. Like I have moments when even I'm icked off by why did I behave like this or why did I do that. So obviously, if you're going to have an extra person into your life, I come with a very huge story. They need to be like very accommodating and very open and understanding. Yeah, because I don't think it'll be that hard because I think I'm putting in all the hard work right now with understanding myself. So I feel that the more I understand myself, the easier it would be for me to let someone know how they should be able to handle me. I think. Though it's not that they'll tell, and I guess that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this work, because then I wouldn't have to be a burden for someone. Because I feel if you don't heal on your own, then you start to bleed onto other people, and that's what I'm trying not to do. Like I don't want to be trauma for someone else. So
I understand that. I understand what you're saying completely, because you want to be in a good place where you're able to handle yourself, your child, and be able to be a good partner to somebody else. But at the same time, I would like you to not put too much pressure on yourself to be that for somebody else, because when the right person comes along, everything, all of your, I don't like the word baggage because it insinuates that it's something negative, but we all carry our suitcases, whatever you want to call them. The right person will come into your life and will help you carry those suitcases, and will help you, and will just take on everything that you are, and in the same breath you take on everything that he is. And I feel like I don't want you to put too much pressure on yourself to be in a 100% good place before you move on fully with your life. And it's not just about partners, it's just about life before you fully move on, because troubles never end in life. If it's not one thing, something else will come up, whether it's small, whether it's big. And I want you to just love who you are, which you seem to do, and know that somebody will love you for who you are no matter what. And if that person isn't loving you for who you are no matter what, then they're not the right person for you.
Thank you. That actually hit home. Thank you.
That's good. In all that you've been through, have you sought therapy yet?
Well, I had, when Alexis had the brain injury, the hospital had like organized some therapy for me because her doctor knew, like even my late husband, he like literally saw us from scratch. He was with us for like a number of months, so he understood where I was coming from. So when she had the brain injury, he organized the hospital like organized therapy for me. I only had like 1 or 2 therapy sessions with that therapist. I didn't think it was necessary at the time, And then again, like just a few months before Alexis passed, I had intentionally, the church that I started going to also offer therapy. And they had let me know that they offer therapy, and that despite me being a Christian, that I would still be able to get therapy and get help in that sense. So I had started, and I only had like about 3 sessions, two sessions, and then Alexis passed. So then that obviously again took me back to a different place, and I haven't been to therapy from that time, but I do plan to, and I'm very open to it, because I think it's something that's very helpful. More so now that I'm being very intentional about things and looking up on things and how to better myself, I do feel it would be something that would actually be extremely helpful.
Is there a reason why you haven't sought therapy since Alexis passed away?
Yes. Apart from finances, it's also the time. Like I mentioned, like I'm working like 2 jobs, and these 2 jobs are just like the official jobs. I have like other side things in between that I'm doing. So like I literally do not have a lot of time. Like I know even this interview was supposed to have done like months ago, but it's just, yeah, like time is something that I don't have at all. Like it's so crazy how I just literally don't have time. So apart from the money, it's also time. But yeah, the biggest chunk of it is just like mainly money. Money issues.
Okay, I understand that. So I mean, I'm a therapist myself, and I knowing that you want to work on yourself, knowing that you are willing to and ready to work on yourself with, I think we've talked about therapy in the past very briefly, we touched upon it. I'm not happy with you not having sought therapy, and I always say that I don't like it when finances hinder the opportunity for somebody to get therapy. So I would like to sponsor some therapy for you for a few sessions. I won't be, I am a therapist, but I won't be taking the therapy myself, because obviously there's the conflict of interest, but I would like to find the therapist, but we can talk about that off camera. But I would—
Thank you so much.
That's fine, you're welcome. So I wanted to also ask you about your misconceptions, what you faced about the misconceptions around grief, because you know, when people grieve in different ways, people view grief in different ways and see someone grieving and have their own thoughts and feelings about it. What are some of the misconceptions that you've faced?
For me, I think I remember the time when my late husband, when I was about to have Kapi, I think I was just probably 2 days to delivering him. I had like a traffic incident where I can't remember what happened, what was wrong. I think I used the wrong route or something. So the cop stopped me, and then I was telling her that I was supposed to have been going to the hospital. I was supposed to check myself into the hospital because I was pregnant. So because I was having a delivery. So I told her, and then I think she'd asked for the white book or something. Then I gave it to her, and then she said, "Oh, this is not your name on the white book." And I was like, "Yeah, it's my late husband." And she's like, "Oh, when did he pass?" Then I told her that was in May. So that was like about roughly 6 months after my husband died. So I said, "Oh, it's 6 months ago." Then she says, "Oh, it's enough time. You're fine now." And I was like, "Okay."
Wow.
And that is, like it was very insensitive from me, because she's like, "Oh no, you're fine now. You're even able to like drive around and do." So for me, I then realized, and I've seen this over time, like even now, like even after I lost Alexis, for most people, rather, not everyone, but most people, they feel you must be on the floor mopping and dragging yourself every time for them to really appreciate that you're mourning or you're giving someone. If you are able to get up in the morning, whether or not you want to, because like for me, it's never, life has never given me the option to just sit home. I wouldn't be able to sit at a home if I can't afford that home. So I need to get up, I need to work, I need to do something. Every time I need to move. And people see you moving and doing all of these things, and they assume that you're okay, and that you're not grieving enough, and that you don't look sad enough, and that you've moved on already, because you are trying to function. Because even half the time people see you doing these things, you're not even truly functioning at your highest. It's a struggle. You have triggers in one day. You'd have so many triggers that set you back on so many things. You're not delivering as you'd want to. I'm blessed to work in places where the people who I'm working with and for understand where I'm coming from and appreciate mental health to an extent where when they see I'm extremely overwhelmed, they'll ask that I take some time off, or they'll be able to understand if I'm not showing up the way that I would. Because like I've had like memory lapses because of all of these things that I've gone through, and they're able to understand. Like I'll forget to even check up on a client or to call a client or get back to them. So people don't see all of these things that are happening to you. They see you getting up every day. They see you or hear you saying you have 2 jobs, and they assume, oh, you're able to do all of these things, so you have healed. Oh wow, you've moved on so quickly. Oh wow, you can even talk about having another child now. It means you've forgotten about Alexis, but it's not that. And I feel people don't understand there's a lot, especially in Africa. I feel there's a lot people do not understand about someone grieving, and then there's judgment that comes from those places. People will see you do something, then they'll judge you. The first instant will not be them being like, trying to put themselves in your shoes and see, oh, maybe this is what's happened. The first thing will be like, oh wow, she's already moving on and about with her life. She's really just forgotten about her daughter just like that so easily. But there's more to it, and I wish people understood that better. I think people would be a bit more kind. Yeah, so those are one of the things, like misconceptions about grief. Yeah.
There's definitely more to it, of course. I mean, but why should you not move on with your life? Why should you not try and move on with your life? At the end of the day, you're here. You've not passed away. You've not died. You've not committed that suicide that you once contemplated. You're here. So if you're here, why not try your best to just try and put one foot in front of the other and move on? And moving on doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean being
never
okay.
loved those people.
No, because I look at you and you look whole. But what does an emotionally challenged or damaged or upset person look like? There's not one look for that person. So I feel like just because you look a certain way, you've been able to smile today during the interview. Hey, so it seems that Sandra and I got cut off as we are in different countries. I guess there's technical issues and we've not been able to reconnect today, but we've pretty much come to the end of the interview.
Hey Una, thank you so much for having me on today's episode. I'm extremely sorry I just got cut off. But I really do hope that everybody who gets a chance to watch this episode will appreciate it, and somehow maybe if they can see themselves somewhere in my story, that they'll be able to not only relate but be able to also understand and see that if I was able to get out of everything that life has thrown at me, that they too are able to get out of it, and that everything is just going to be okay. Keep on believing in God, keep on having the faith, keep on fighting, keep on having the hope. Thank you.
Sandra, I want to say thank you so much for being here, for trusting me with your thoughts, your feelings, and your emotions. I just want to say that you're a tower of strength. You're truly an inspirational woman. You have been through so much, and yet you've come out fighting. And I hope that one day you're able to get to a place where you feel truly content. And that doesn't mean forgetting what you've been through, but just being content. And I see that already happening for you. So I'm so proud of you, honestly. And I hope that I've handled your story with care. Thank you so much again. And I'll speak to you soon. Viewers, I hope you are able to hear this story and reach out to Sandra if you want to give her a hand of support, if you want to give her some words of encouragement, if you can relate to her story. I'm sure she'll be more than happy to hear from you. Thank you so much again, Sandra. You're amazing.
We all have emotions and think about things. Let's talk about